let's get to our conversation, man, because I know we like 27 minutes in already. So what we gonna do today for everybody getting in the room? Tell a friend that we live, man. I know everybody be talking about they're missing our lives. When are our lives? We're live right now, and just so you don't miss the live, make sure you hit the bell icon on YouTube so you'll be notified when we do go live. But we usually do it on Wednesday afternoons and Friday evenings. So what we're going to talk about now, we're going to talk about hip hop's top 10 groups all time based on catalog, impact, and chemistry. And just to be fair, we left out the groups that have a makeup of an MC and a DJ. Because then, Eric B. and Rakim would probably take up some spots that wouldn't be fair, right? But we're going to do a separate countdown for that. Now, with all that being said, who you got? Who are the people on your list, sir?
So I got like seven pretty easy that I just kind of rang off, and that was easy.
All
It
right,
was
let's go.
Outkast, it was Wu-Tang Clan, A Tribe Called Quest, Mobb Deep, Public Enemy, De La Soul, and NWA. After I got to those seven, I had to pause, Mike, because listen to the list of groups that you have to choose from. Like if you pick the seven
Hold
that I
on.
would
You
have
gonna
picked,
leave out Run DMC?
listen to who's left, Mike. The Roots, The Locks, Bone, The Clips, UGK, 8 Ball and MJG, 3-6 Mafia, Ghetto Boys, Goody Mob, Run DMC.
All right, listen. I'm gonna put Run DMC ahead of all of those people. Say that group of others again.
The Roots, The Locks,
Okay.
Bone Thugs and Harmony, The Clips, UGK, 8 Ball and MJG, 3-6 Mafia, Ghetto Boys, Goody Mob, Run DMC.
Okay. Of those nine, yeah, I'm okay with Run DMC going ahead of all of them.
Okay. So Mike, let's discuss our criteria right quick. It's catalog, impact, and chemistry.
I think on the chemistry and impact level, Run DMC is undeniable. I think
Right,
their
Mike. I think people don't
catalog.
understand their chemistry was epic
I think
too.
catalog though, song
Is where they
wise,
suffer. Yep.
their catalog though, just based on their timing and I think they've made some timeless music. Like when you hear King of Rock and you hear even Run's House. Can we go moving forward a
I
little bit?
love Run's
Or
House.
even if you hear um, um, it's like that. I mean, they got some very, very strong singles. Now, I think
They
the
do.
only thing that Run DMC, I don't want to say, the only thing they don't benefit from is the fact that albums progressively got better as the culture went on. So, album wise, they don't have the concept albums that, some of their later counterparts would have. Or even a album that would even match up with PE's It Takes a Nation. But their individual singles are super strong. And they've aged very well. I'll put it that
You
way.
you want to know what really happened to them though? Is Mike, the era that they were in more than any other era, like took leaps and bounds in terms of the progression. And
Yeah.
DMC even spoke to it. He was like, when I first heard Rakim, I knew it was over for us. That was like 3 years after y'all first came out.
But
You know what I'm
even with
saying?
that being said, though, they were able to give us King of Rock. It's tricky. Walk This Way,
Walk
Run's
This Way.
House, Rock Box, Peter
Sucker
Piper,
MCs, Mike.
Mary Mary, Sucker MCs, of course. My
Mary, yeah.
Adidas.
My
You know,
Adidas.
they got joints, not to mention the Christmas and Hollis. Like,
Right. Down with the Kings too, Mike.
yeah,
Was dope.
yeah.
Down with the Kings is a hip hop classic record, yeah.
Their
Um,
catalog is different in the sense where they gave us classic songs more so than classic albums. Kind of a LL Cool J type of problem,
but that
right?
was that was the goal. That
Yeah,
was Russell was trying to get to the money. You know what
yeah.
I mean? Rick was more about the music than Russell was. You know what I'm saying?
But at the
Like
time, hip hop albums hadn't really been a
it
thing.
hadn't evolved to
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Run's
So I
House is
will
my
give them
favorite.
that.
Run's House is my favorite joint, but you're right, Mike. I'll put them. I would put them in about all those things that you said because it's like I felt the way that you felt. The catalog isn't there, but the impact is so heavy and the chemistry is so strong. It was just abbreviated,
But the
but it's great.
catalog is there. It's just different than everybody else's because, like you said, hip hop hadn't evolved to the album stage yet.
How about this, Mike? When you listed their songs off just now, I thought to myself, that's a whole problem for any group in the verses to have to go up
Oh
against those
yeah,
records.
yeah. Now, if
That's
we
a
wanted to
problem.
play that game with Run DMC,
If you want to play that
yeah,
live game with Run DMC with those records, like you losing almost all of those, unless you're like
right,
doing fight, unless you're like got Fight the Power,
yeah.
like you know Scenario, like you need like some
You got to
oh
be
yeah.
top five easy, you know. And as much as I love 8 Ball and MJG, UGK, and a few more that you mentioned, pretty much everybody that you mentioned, even Bone. I think Bone is going to be a big discussion here because for me, I'm going to be perfectly honest, and I guess this is the segue for me to say this. I got 3 6 Mafia over Bone all day. I just have to. I mean, if we're sitting here let's look at the impact, and some could say Bone's
Hold on.
impact is more so on this whole R&B flow. You know, even when they were on that Migos thing and going back and forth with the Migos, I'm sitting here like Migos are way more 3 6 influenced than they are Bone. And
Can
I
I
think
can I
it's by generation, right? I think Migos being from Atlanta, I think they're Crime Mob influenced, and Crime Mob was directly influenced from 3 6. Their whole group makeup was even like 3 6.
so Mike, when I got to that seven and I was picking, I'm gonna tell you the groups that I came down to that I was picking from.
Mm-hmm.
Run DMC, 3 6 Mafia, the Roots, the Locks, and the Clips. Those were the five that I was picking for, but only three of those are getting in. But I was kind of leaning towards Run DMC based on our criteria of things that you said.
Now, the Locks are a very special case too that we want to talk about. I think that the Locks' longevity has been incredible, but I think that the Locks have done more as individuals than they have as a collective. So, and that's the other thing I guess we need to put in this conversation too. Solo stuff is not included. So, even when we talk about Wu Tang, we're just talking about Into the 36, Wu Tang Forever, the W, so on and so on. We're
Iron
not,
Flag.
yeah, Iron Flag. We're not counting the individual stuff. And so if we put that caveat with the Locks, I think that changes things a little bit for them. Um, I'm seeing people saying Smith and Wesson, Group Home, not top 10 though.
Not top 10, but Mike, you know who crossed my mind today? Had they done more work, like, and just really become more of a collective, like Boot Camp Click, Smith and Wesson,
Yeah.
Rough
I
and Raw.
listen.
I already know how you feel about Sean Price.
Yeah. Sean Price is my guy. You know what I'm saying?
Sean
Rest in
Price is
peace,
the one that killed Operation Lockdown.
man.
He
I
killed it.
love Helter Skelter, man. I love Helter Skelter. We got Cypress Hill. Chris Bryan says Cypress Hill got to be in there. What do you think about Cypress Hill being in the top 10?
Mike, actually, when I was doing this list, they were the 20th group that I named, so I would consider them to be top 20, but I would probably have them somewhere 15 to 20, just truthfully.
How do you feel about somebody saying the NWA only has 2 albums, especially since we put the caveat out there that we're not counting solo stuff?
Mike, the two albums are straight out of Compton and Niggas for Life.
I feel you, but
Mike, we going by catalog, right?
catalog is strong. Impact is the strongest of the three when it comes to NWA, in my opinion. Chemistry, not so much.
Mike, where they actually struggle is chemistry because
Yeah.
Cube left. But
And
they
even when
sound,
Cube left, it was still like you hear those stories about Easy and Dre not being on the same page and all that. Um,
hit
yeah,
it very well. Hit it very well on Niggas for Life. Hit it very well.
I think so. I think they hit it very well. I think Niggas for Life, man, as dope as it is, sonically, it lacks direction. And you could tell that Cube was the direction in that collective, right? Like
Yes.
MC Ren was. This is what it is. I feel like on
How
Niggas
about
for
this? You
Life,
want to know
they
what it is?
doubled
It's the
down and tried too hard to be the world's most dangerous group and didn't
right.
have a purpose with it lyrically.
Right. So here's what goes understated, and here's why I've always felt the way that you felt. If Ice Cube is on Niggas for Life, it's arguably going to be the greatest rap album ever. And here's why. People forget Cube is a gangster, but his socio and economic political commentary has an MC while he's talking the way he's talking, Mike. It cannot be undervalued or understated. And that's what's missing from Niggas for Life It's just a bunch of dudes from Compton talking a bunch of gangster. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't have any of socio-economic,
No,
political,
definitely.
poverty-stricken ramifications in terms of the dialogue. That's where you can see Cube not being there coming into effect, and you can hear it like listen to Cube and what Cube's talking about on America's Most Wanted. Now go put that somewhere in with Niggas for Life, and yeah, you might have like the greatest rap album ever.
Well, I like to say Death Certificate because they came out the same year. But yeah, I get you. I mean,
I'm
just a
talking about
combination of
content though.
those two, content
I'm talking
wise.
about content because
I
the
mean, because
content on America's Most was more of what Niggas for Life needed than Death Certificate
Niggas
was.
for Life really, really, really suffer on a content level, especially if you listen to it, years later as an adult. Some of the shit they saying on there, man, I think
It's
lyrically, it's one of
it's hard to listen
it's hard
from
to
beginning
listen
to
to.
end.
It's a
Yeah.
no one of any generation can complain about anything that kids are listening to now if you listen to Niggas for Life. Nothing lyrically, content wise, I think is worse than that album. And that's just being honest. You know what I mean? Now it comes through the speakers well, and once again, that is just another kudos to how great of a producer that Dr. Dre is. He can make you ignore all of that stuff. And I don't even want to say all the stuff that they said on that album on our channel. So, you know what I
You
mean?
can't,
But
Mike.
with that being said, I think Cube being in the fold or leaving the fold, that made that group lose all kind of direction as a
Well, this is
rap
what I'm
group.
saying. Straight out of Compton. Like, listen to Express Yourself.
Hmm.
That's Cube. That's what Niggas for Life is missing. It's missing that commentary.
So
Like
saying
that
all
gives
that
it
to
some depth
say,
and some touch. So the production, how about this? Niggas for Life is when Dr. Dre becomes the producer that we know today. Like that's where it really, really like takes off and takes flight.
hmm
But Niggas for Life is missing Cube's socioeconomic and political commentary. It just is. But it's the only thing missing, Mike.
but it's missing chemistry altogether. I think we got into that whole tangent to say that NWA is not really high on chemistry, right?
Well, the chemistry was obviously fractured because Cube left and there were money issues and he was airing it out. So, I mean, like, yeah, of
You feel
course.
like
But
they had chemistry while he was there?
Mike, listen to Straight Outta Compton. You want to know, Straight Outta Compton is one of those classics that feels like a classic. And I'm going to make a comparison. I know it's two different artists in two different ways. You know how the College Dropout just feels like a classic, Mike?
Hmm.
When you hear it, that's how Straight Outta Compton feels when you listen to it, Mike. It just feels like a classic. Yeah, they do have chemistry on that album. It is there. They are
Okay.
together.
All right, we got
Cube's
people
doing
bringing Goody Mob into the conversation. What is
Goody
your
Mob.
thoughts on that?
Goody Mob was one of the people that made the list. But Mike, if you go actually just okay, so Outkast impact has been heavier, and their catalog has been better, and it's a little bit longer. I mean, Mike, that they had Still Standing and Soul Food.
You know what? I think that it's very difficult to put. I mean, because obviously, Outkast and Goody Mob are always going to be paired together, to side by side. But I think it's going to be very difficult to put Goody Mob over 8 Ball and UGK, 8 Ball and MJG, excuse me, and UGK based on the work. Now, what I will say, I will say that, and I've said this before on this show, I'm sure. I
I know
think
what you're about
that
to say.
Soul Food is the second best hip hop album. Shit, second best album to ever come out of the city of Atlanta. I think Soul Food hit such a high mark. I think that Cell Therapy is probably one of the more brilliant first single and gutsy first singles we've ever seen in hip hop.
One of the
But to
gutsiest
me,
singles ever.
I think that it was a constant, downturn from Soul Food, and I wish the Goody Mob had the opportunity to turn it around as a collective because I know they had the talent to do so. It just didn't happen, and it's very difficult to put the group with the catalog of Soul Food Still Standing, which I think is a good album, but to me, Still
It's a
Standing,
dope album.
pales in comparison to Soul Food for me.
No,
Um,
you're right. Let's hold
and
on. So let's go ahead.
World Party and One Monkey Don't Stop No Show. I can't put them ahead of 8 Ball and MJG and UGK and a few of the others that we're speaking about. It's incredible of a group that I believe and know that they are.
So a couple things to that, like Soul Food has a record might be better than anything that UGK, 8 Ball MJG, 3 6, and Ghetto Boys has made.
I
But
think so. I
But
think
one
so.
album a career doesn't make, Mike. I kind of agree with you. I think it's the third best rap album to ever come out of the city of Atlanta because I still think Southern Playalistic is slightly better. So I have
Mm-mm.
Aquemini, and then I have Southern Playalistic, and then I have Soul Food. And Mike, if we were judging it off the same thing, here's what I'll tell you. Dre and Big Boy's chemistry is instant. The impact of Southern Playalistic is heavier, and it rides just as well as Soul Food, and it has bigger hits.
Well, all right. This is what I will say. I disagree with you on the chemistry thing. I think both of them had really good chemistry. But what was so special about Soul Food, and you can hear it in damn near every song, but you can hear it specifically in Cell Therapy or Guess Who? It
I
felt
love
like
Guess Who.
four different guys with four different outlooks and four different perspectives on life, giving you their individual perspective on things on every single song. I feel like they missed that on the albums moving forward, but on Soul Food, they hit that, man. And
Mike,
one of the things with groups, I think that when you have different dynamics, that makes groups stronger. Like, I feel like Bone did a really good job of that. I think 3 6 did a good job of that. But Goody Mob's one of those groups. You're never like Timo, CeeLo, Cujo, and Gip have four totally different
totally
styles.
different perspectives. Mike,
No,
actually, you want to know what?
styles,
I,
perspectives, voices, like they are totally different
Mike,
MCs and they make it work.
I actually thought the record that really displayed that more than anything other track on that album was actually Sesame Street, Mike.
Yeah, yeah, it's a
I
lot of
love
them.
Sesame Street.
It's a lot of them, and it's like
No, it's a moment, Mike.
it
It's not just
is.
like a Southern moment. Like that's a rap moment. That's a hip hop moment. And but it's just that album. It's like you said, Still Standing is a really dope project. Soul Food is a classic. But after that, and Mike, and even though I'm saying Soul Food is better than like a Riding Dirty or a Coming Out Hard or a We Can't Be Stopped,
Hmm.
it's not like leaps and bounds better. It's just better.
I think the thing is with Soul Food in relation to Goody Mob's other catalog and other groups, Soul Food showed us the apex of what this group could be. And when you start there, that's the standard. And not to say that Goody Mob didn't make good music after that, but they didn't give us what we loved them for consistently after that in a collective.
Hey,
Uh, but see, again, man, it's hard
and
to
you want to
match
know
the
what?
rawness
And
of your
here's
debut
another thing
album.
too, Mike. Soul Food has a really understated moment on it that doesn't get talked about enough. People forget Soul Food came out in '95,
Hmm.
and so like Southern MCs, like outside of Scarface, I would say, really weren't looked at in that manner. And CeeLo's verse on Goodie Bag is one of those, yeah, we can rap as well as y'all and like spaz out on the track kind of verses that kind of like help bring uh credibility to Southern MCs in the culture. Like he
I mean, those
spazzed on
dudes
that
were
verse.
spitting. Period. I honestly, and I it's an
You say that
unpopular.
now, but in 1995, it wasn't considered to be that outside
No,
of
no, you're right.
Dre. Yeah.
I think that, and this is an unpopular opinion, but I feel like Cujo's the best rapper on Soul Food. I feel like CeeLo became way better on Still Standing, but again, his elevation, and I think that honestly, respectfully, his elevation was really the death of the group, but his elevation really messed with the chemistry of the group on a
So Mike,
collective
so
and the
Soul
way
Food
that he
sounds
was
like a group
elevated.
album, and Still Standing kind of feels like okay, so CeeLo's the star now, and it's kind of like
Yeah,
gone. Yeah.
exactly. Because you could even debate. Like I said, I have an unpopular opinion that Cujo was the best rapper on Soul Food. There was a debate at least on the first one, but on the second one, the dynamics weren't there. Now somebody
Like
mentioned,
I
and
had
I need to
Cujo
go up in the
third on
chat.
Soul Food. I like Gip on Soul Food
I
more than I
love
like
Gibb.
Cujo. About the same though.
I don't know, man, but lyrically, Cujo was taking it there, man. Sesame Street's another one. I mean,
Sesame Street. I was actually thinking about Cujo on Guess Who. That's my favorite verse on Guess Who
oh
is
man,
Cujo's verse.
man, Cujo was taking it there. Another four-man group, or fifth if you want to count Flesh. They're talking about Bone in the chat too. Said Bone's chemistry fell off after the 2000s when different members started leaving and returning. It was a revolving door. That's what Barrow says, listen, I think that we're talking about Goody Mob. Bone kind of suffered from similar things. If we want to be
Same,
totally
Mike,
right,
same
like,
exact thing. A classic album, one really dope album, and then everything after that is kind of like, and chemistry and group issues.
yeah.
Yes.
After East 1999, the chemistry was done. Busy in particular, he had issues with Easy E's wife. And
Hmm.
yeah, he wasn't showing up for videos that were on Art of War. Art of War, to me, the mistake of Art of War, once again, and you know me if you watch the show,
Double albums.
double album, shouldn't have been a double album. And then on top of the double album status, the singles just weren't that strong. Now, Bone really wasn't one of those groups that you think are gonna get you like the traditional hip hop smash single, but they did a really good job up to that point with songs like Thuggish Ruggish Bone, For the Love of Money, First of the Month, and the Crossroads remix. Art of War really doesn't have that moment. It's not a bad album, but one could say after East 1999 they kind of fell off. But I
You
think
know
that's
what?
more so a chemistry thing.
Yeah, you know what I always liked about Bone though? Outside of the Crossroads remix, none of their singles that became big hits seemed like they were forced. Thuggish Ruggish Bone, First of the Month,
Yeah,
those records feel organic, Mike. They're
and they're
just naturally
big.
like dope records. And
Yeah,
so Crossroads to me is the only time they really tried to make a single. And to be honest with you, I think the success of that single changed things
it
for
did.
them.
Oh, of course it did. I
And
mean, it's
but
one
but
of
it
the. I
changed
would
their
say it's
approach.
probably
But
one
what
of
I
the biggest hip hop
but
songs of that era, right? Possibly
Mike,
ever.
actually, you want to know what, Mike? When we talk about like the greatest rap songs of all time, we skip over that record, and we need to stop skipping over that record
Yeah, it's
because
a
that
great record.
record's up there. And if I'm not mistaken, like I believe it did like 4 million units as a single,
That
like when
record
it
did a
came out.
lot, and it's
So
really
it was
important
real
too.
big and a game changer for them. But what I'm saying is they started crafting records differently on their projects after that too. It wasn't just a chemistry issue. It's like, nah, like y'all ain't got to do that. Y'all can do the Thuggish Ruggish Bone thing, and we'll buy in. So
It's
I
interesting
feel
you
like
say that. It might have been more singing going on after Crossroads, right?
yes, that's what I mean, Mike. Like when they used to harmonize and stuff, they used to harmonize in hooks on records. They started making whole songs where they was harmonizing and all that stuff. And it's like, nah, like East 1999, like the
Yeah,
song, Mike, that song's so tough they was able to release it as a single.
hardcore. I love that video too. I
I
love that
love
video
that
so much.
video,
I
Mike.
had
That's
it
one of my five
recorded on
favorite songs
VHS.
from them.
I had the video recorded on VHS, man.
That's one of their five best songs to me, Mike. But it's like, so
and,
when they
and they
used
would
to
wait
like
till the
harmonize,
end, like you said,
like
be
Mike,
like, yeah,
yeah, like Mike, the weed tracks, but Bud Smokers Only and Buddha Lovers, like when they're harmonizing on there,
yeah.
it sounds beautiful. It doesn't sound forced. You know, it's never making the radio.
They on East 1999, the song, like they just started busting like
They just started busting, Mike.
five
Ooh.
verses straight, and then they came with the Cleveland is the city where we come from. So run. It's like, who does that?
No,
Like,
that's
yeah.
what I'm saying, Mike. That's organic.
Mm-hmm.
That everything after Crossroads remix feels a little forced. Even
Yeah,
like the collab with Pac, like it's a dope ass record,
I
but it
like that
feels
record.
kind of forced. It feels like Pac punched into something that they was working on because somebody from the label or they felt like they needed. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
I feel a little different about that, but what I do feel about that record, I feel like Busy is so separate. This damn near sounds like a song that Busy might have been working on his own, and like you said, Pac punched in, and then boom, the rest of the group is in there.
Mike, it's like
Yeah,
really like first of all, Pac took that record over.
think
He
so?
took Yeah, Mike, he took that record over because Notorious Thugs is more of a song that you'll play from beginning to end because of their chemistry and how they're delivering on the song. On Thug Love, after Pac's part, you can cut it off if you want.
No, I disagree with that. Now, I personally like Thug Love better than Notorious Thugs. It's just me personally. I mean, but I do. I know it's an unpopular opinion again. I do. I think I like the beat better. It just sounds more.
It
This is
doesn't
what
sound as organic, Mike. It
it
doesn't.
sounds more organic to me. It sounds like they fuck with Pop more than they
No,
fuck
they
with
might
Big.
fuck with Pac, but fucking with Pac don't make it organic.
I don't know, man. I liked
I'm
it
talking about something musically being organic in terms of how it's built, how it flows, how it feels.
because when Crazy came in after Pop, I mean that shit was hard.
No, but Crazy's a pro. You know what
Yeah,
I'm
and
saying?
then
And,
then
and
Lazy
he's the
comes
strongest
in.
member in the group, if you ask me, because
Oh,
he's the
by
one that
far,
can.
in my opinion,
Yeah,
Crazy was always my favorite.
he had the best voice to me, Mike. He had the best cadence. He was
He has
arguably
one
the
of the
best
best
lyricist.
flows I've ever heard. Period.
You want to know what I love from him, Mike? On JD's 1472 with the Brat.
Oh yeah,
Uh, why don't you
anything.
come and get you some? Hate on me, yeah. Why don't
Anything that
you?
Crazy was jumping on at that time. Again, they suffer from similar things that Goody Mob suffered from. I think that the development that Crazy was having was so extreme, he damn near needed to be by himself. But
What
see,
made
at the
Busy think
same
he was the
time,
star and want to go solo though,
that was
Mike?
the
That's what
thing.
I never understood.
Busy was the youngest, and
Mm.
I'm not going to speak for him because he gets on social media and speaks for himself a lot. Maybe he could give more clarity to it, come on the show or something. But Busy was the youngest. He had issues with the way the business was being handled, and I think that kind of delved into maybe some of the riffs. I don't think it was. Now, honestly, too, I will say this: Busy was the first one to drop a solo album, and his solo album was actually pretty good.
It's solid. Yeah, it was a good
Yeah, it was
project.
actually pretty good. So he could do it, but I just think they had a lot of success coming at them at one time. It was four members in a group. They were young,
I
and
mean,
it's just
that
tough.
EP, Mike, that EP, Creeping on a Come Up, like Creeping on a Come Up sold like 3-4 million records. It was like 6-7 songs.
Yeah, they were super super successful, and I
Hmm.
think that when you listen to Art of War, I listen to it now. Sounds like Crazy was really carrying that record. He took on a lot that he didn't take on the first album. They
Mike,
all had
they
individual songs on there. I just think that Art of War suffered from, man, they just didn't have an executive producer. Who
Mike, they
thought it
were
was a good
big.
idea to have an individual song for everybody on there?
They were big, Mike. Like it was a whole thing if you knew
Hmm.
how to rap the verses to Thuggish Ruggish Bone when I was in middle school. Like
Yeah.
if you knew the verses, like you were the shit. Like if you could get their whole rhyme style down, it was a whole thing.
So, based on what we're just saying in this tangent that we've gone on with Goody Mob and Bone, it's funny. I didn't
They're
even.
out of the top 10 is
Yeah,
what
based on
really.
what we just, and so you have to go through all of those things so you can kind of deduce that because people will see Bone and Goody and just feel like they should be there. Why do you
It's
think?
nostalgia.
Why do you think Mob Deep though is the top 10?
Because Mike, if you actually look at it, nobody's done East Coast gangster rap better than Mobb Deep at their peak. Anybody, that solo artist or group, they're that tough. They have a top-notch, top-level lyricist in Prodigy. They have a top-notch, top-level producer in Havoc, Mike, and they have the catalog. They have the chemistry. And Mike, you see the impact right now with Griselda because when I hear
Okay.
Griselda, I hear the Mobb Deep shit that I love that I grew up on more than I hear any other influence. I hear Mobb Deep. Like I know a lot of people feel like West Side's voice and track selection is comparable to Ghostface, and there is some credence to that. But the collective, Mike,
Mm-hmm.
like the way they talk, that's that Mobb Deep shit, Mike. Like
Oh,
it is, Mike.
definitely.
How does Hitler Wears Hermes 8 start off? Hell
Yeah.
on Earth 2. Where they get that from, Mike?
Mm.
Right.
Okay. What would you say to somebody that
Oh, and
would ask
Mike,
if why EPMD is not over Mob Deep to you?
Mike, because EPMD don't got nothing fucking with the infamous.
Mm.
They don't. No.
Shook Ones too.
Chick Ones 2, Temperatures Rising, right back at you with Ray and Ghost, Eye for an Eye with Nas and Ray, Give Up the Goods, 41st
Well, let's
Side,
just go to some
Survival of the
of.
Fittest,
Let's
Drink
just go
Away
to
the
some
Pain
of.
with Q-Tip.
Let's just go to
No.
Mob Deep. Some of the Mob Deep single classics, right?
Mike,
I
Mike, they're
Yeah, they got the
Mike.
singles. Like I think Shook Ones Part Two is one of the greatest hip hop songs ever made, right?
Because it is, Mike. And it's one of the greatest verses ever, too. So, Mike, let's go through
Quiet
that single.
Storm
Survival of
remix.
the Fittest, Give Up the Goods, Shook Ones Part 2.
Hmm.
What was Hell on Earth 2? Hell on Earth, the actual record, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
It's Mine with Nas.
Mm-hmm.
Quiet Storm, Mike? Quiet Storm, anybody? EPMD got something fucking with Quiet Storm? No.
Gray says EPMD had one of the best 4 album runs ever.
No. No, it's not true.
Oh man, you gonna knock that? All right,
It's
who?
not better. It's Mike. They don't got. It's not better than the infamous "Hell on Earth" and "Murder Music."
Okay,
Like
you
it's
got
strong,
Outkast's.
Mike.
All right, let's look at
Mike. I can
Outkast's
go
four
pull. I
album
can go
run.
pull 20 songs off of those 3 albums, and it's the best gangster rap, East Coast gangster rap you gonna find. Period. Period. Point blank.
Okay,
The
so
best.
you're
Not some of the
putting
best, Mike. The best shit,
you're
Mike.
putting Mobb Deep's first 4 albums above EPMD's first 4 albums.
Mike, I'm putting Mobb Deep over EPMD. Period. Like about anything that you want to say.
They're saying you're
Catalog,
crazy in the
impact,
chat.
chemistry. No, hold on. Is Eric Sermon a better producer than Havoc? Is Parrish a better lyricist than Prodigy? Let's go ahead and start breaking it down fundamentally, since people want to say that.
Okay.
Right.
I think that
Eric
it can
Sermon
be
better than
argued
Havoc?
the Eric
No.
Sermon producer thing, but I
No, you
like
can't,
Havoc's
Mike.
beats.
No, you can't, Mike. No, you can't, Mike. Eric Sermon's not a better producer than Havoc. Parrish isn't a better MC than Prodigy, and they don't have nothing fucking with the infamous. But go,
Okay.
go, cause
Hold. Let me go ahead and just to be
ridiculous.
fair, we're gonna go side by
That's
side.
that's that trapped in the '80s nigga shit right there.
Well, some could say
We might
niggas
be,
is
Mike.
trapped
We
in
might
the
be trapped in the
90s.
'90s sometime. But if you think, Mike, it's like I told you, I'm fair.
Okay, hold on. Strictly business or no? We gotta be fair. We can't act like they started with the infamous.
I'm about to say, Mike, if you
Strictly
want to line it up,
business
Mike,
or juvenile hell.
then we're giving strictly business
Strictly
that,
business. EPMD got that.
and then they're losing everything else, Mike.
Unfinished business and the infamous. Then you got business as usual and hell on earth. And then you got business never personal and murder music. Back to see now we're at the late 90s EP&D. Back to business and what is it, infamy? I'm going with infamy on that.
Like I said,
And
so
they
they
say
got
that
one.
they're picking Eric Sermon as a producer over Havoc. Now, let's
Over
do
what
that
beats?
argument.
What beats? What beats? Name the tracks. No. Name the tracks. Name the tracks right now.
Yeah, Anthony 4000, man. Name the tracks. Name the tracks for Coop so we can go ahead and have that debate. Now,
Yeah, name the
Triborough
tracks that Eric
also
Sermon that has
asked,
made this better produced than Havoc. Like, name them. And I'm not even
Triborough,
trying to knock him. 'Cause I
Triborough
like Eric Sermon.
also asked about Salt and Pepper. Now, you want to break that down, why Salt and Pepper's not in the top 10? Or you think
You
they
know,
should be
Mike,
in the
they
top
actually
10?
came along kind of like for females in a time where they kind of suffered from the Run DMC thing a little bit, where it was really more singles than album driven. Very Necessary is really the first album that they put together that felt like an album, and that is a dope project. So they do deserve some honorable mention. Their impact definitely doesn't need to be understated. And
Yeah.
shout out to whoever dropped that comment in, because they definitely deserve some kudos and some recognition.
Yeah, that was Triborough. I think their impact is, out of this world. I think that, them and Run DMC have impact that just can't be touched. You're the first.
Yeah.
Chemistry, Chemistry is interesting because I think Salt and Pepper have chemistry. But, it's when you add Spinderella, who is a part of the group,
Very shady.
that's when it's a little different. Catalog, I think, like you said, with the Run DMC thing, if we ran down their hits in their catalog,
Their problem.
yeah, and I think it would be very difficult for any female in hip hop, period, or any
No,
group
Mike,
in hip hop,
like-
period, to even contend with the hit songs that Salt and Pepper had.
You want to know what they really deserve credit for? They were content heavy, Mike.
They were.
Let's Talk About Sex came out when the HIV epidemic had kind of like hit like the media heavy and started hitting epic proportions. You know what I mean?
Right.
Even like Mike, I love a record like What a Man. It's rare that you get a record like that.
It's creative,
where you
too.
Hear, yeah, it's creative where you hear women of that stature like dedicating a song about how much they love black men. So they're like content wise, they're there. They have a lot of stuff. He's making a
Push It
very
is a
valid
hit.
point, Mike. Mike,
Push
you
is
want
one
to
of
know
the
what?
biggest hip hop songs ever made.
Mike, people, like, if there's an '80s party, girls still dress up like Salt and Pepper and do the Push It dance.
Exactly.
Like it's real, Mike. Fam just made one of the most insightful comments we've ever had on this show. Actually, that was actually what I was thinking. That's one of the more insightful comments that we've had since we've been doing this show for over a year and a half. And shout out to him for doing that.
So we got what? You got Push It, you got What a Man, you got Shoot, Let's Talk About Sex, None of Your Business, Shake Your Thing, Groove Me, Hold On, Get Up Everybody.
Salt can do the verse from Stomp. Stomp is dope.
Yeah. Gray says Salt and Pepper still the GOAT female group. Are there any female groups to contend with them?
No, but
I don't even think that there's like
101.
Yeah, like who's the second best female group in hip hop?
101.
Somebody said TLC, they're not a hip hop group. Cut it out.
Drop that.
Okay, all right. So you made your case for Mobb Deep. I'm gonna make my case for 3 6 Mafia to be in the top 10. We talking about catalog.
Hold on, Mike. Mike, I'm really just having trouble getting past the fact that people feel like Mobb Deep's not a top 10 hip hop group. Like people talk about us being biased, but it's like name a group that comes out of the East Coast that did what Mobb Deep did as great as they did, the way that they did it for as long as they did.
What would you say Mobb Deep's run is? 95 to
I would say like 95 all the way up to Infamy, Mike, because even though I don't love Infamy and it's definitely a drop off, it still has The Learning on there. It still has Getaway on there.
I love Burn, personally.
Yeah, The Learning, Burn. That's the same record, The Learning,
right,
Burn. Yeah, Mike, that's crazy. That's one of their best records. Yeah.
Yeah.
So even when they were like kind of like precipitating from their fall, no, there was still stuff on there. And Mike, the stuff on the infamous Hell on Earth and Murder Music, like Mike, it don't get better than that. Streets Raised Me. The joint with Cool G Rap, Mike, The Realist.
Yeah.
No, Mike, the joint with 8 Ball, Where You From?
And you know what? One thing that I will...
The joint with Cormega, How You Want It.
All right, so before I get into my 3 6 thing...
You don't even know about Feel My Gap, Blow.
So, Mobb Deep, because a lot of people, even though it's a regional difference, everything that you said about Mobb Deep, East Coast-wise, could be said about UGK, 8 Ball, and MJG. I feel like UGK has more, I guess, hit power than 8 Ball and MJG, even though 8 Ball and MJG have Space Age Pimpin'. Now, I think we talked about this last show. You're more of an 8 Ball and MJG person. I'm more of a UGK person.
Right.
Who gets in the top 10? If there's only one spot left and you have to pick 8 Ball and MJG or UGK, who are you picking and why?
If we're going off of what our criteria is,
there we go.
I'm probably going to have to be objective and pick UGK because I feel like their impact has been greater than 8 Ball and MJG's. And chemistry-wise, I find them to be just slightly, maybe more. Like, they sound slightly better together because of the differences in voice and cadence. And, like, with Pimp, you're getting the harmonizer and the pinch and the draw. And with Bun, you're getting the rapid-fire flow and high-level lyricism. So it's a hard combo to beat chemistry-wise.
Yeah.
And impact-wise, they've resonated. So I'm going to lean on UGK over 8 Ball and MJG objectively, even though I listen. And I told you, Mike, I really love them the same. I just find myself listening to 8 Ball and MJG more. I really
looking at some of the groups that we have down, a lot of these groups that we have down, with the exception of Outkast, they have internal production, and I really feel like Prince Paul was damn near a part of De La Soul, to be honest. So
wasn't he though? I mean, wasn't he? I mean, like really?
Much, but yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think I would give that edge to UGK as well. I was just listening to Beehive's interview with Bun B. Shout out to Beehive out there. And Bun was like, my job was easy. Like, I would just come in and do my rap thing. Like, Pimp C was the one that was doing all the production, the mixing, the hooks and all of that. So Bun knew his role. His role was to go in there and just bust. And I think that adds to that chemistry because some things that and Outkast did an incredible job with this, I think, but they did a lot of their production too later on down the line. If we be totally honest,
Yeah.
so I guess they have internal production too because Mr. DJ did a lot of stuff and they formed Earth Tone 3. But when you're sitting here looking at a group that has to rely on outside production, it's inevitable that some of that stuff's gonna fit one of the members more than the other, right?
I think that happens to the Locks and the Clips.
Mm-hmm. Like somebody's gonna sound better on the production that's being chosen. Now, at least with the Clips, they're working with the Neptunes, so they have an individual team that they're working with on a consistent basis. But the Locks, they were getting production from all over the place.
Yeah, they were. So Mike,
Um,
can we run down who we got so far just to make sure? Because here's the thing,
okay.
like, I think Wu-Tang, Outkast, A Tribe Called Quest, and Public Enemy and De La Soul are pretty easy picks for almost anybody,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so we have a question about NWA, but I think
I
we
don't
kind of
think there's a
answered that.
question about
There's
NWA.
not, and I don't think there's a question about Run DMC.
No.
And so the only person we've questioned out of the 8 groups we've named is Mobb Deep.
Yeah. So yeah,
And,
we got
and
two more
okay,
spots left. I
so
think
Mike,
Mob
I'm
Deep's
gonna
in there. You made a really good
Mike,
claim.
about that right there, because I don't think people understand how cold Mobb Deep is. I'm gonna do a 25 song playlist of like their best stuff, like just their group stuff, and I'm gonna put it up on Spotify. But you can kind of funnel it out to the website because I
Okay,
want
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
people
yeah.
who don't think, because I want the people who don't think Mobb Deep belongs in this top 10 to give me their groups with 25 better songs than the songs I'm about to drop, because I don't think they got it.
What about Ghetto Boys? What about Ghetto Boys? When we
I
talk
got
about
Ghetto Boys on here too. Biggest problem with Ghetto Boys is Scarface, and Scarface's catalog, Mike, because Scarface's catalog and his work just supersedes theirs, and he was their main writer. And it's almost like when he went solo, it got better.
I
Hello?
can't put the Ghetto Boys over 3 6 or UGK. So this is what
I
I
can't
got.
either.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And anybody in the room, let me know what I'm forgetting or who I'm forgetting. And this is in no particular order. I got Outkast, Wu Tang, Tribe, Public Enemy, De La Soul, NWA, Mobb Deep, Run DMC, UGK, and 3 6 Mafia. That's who I have.
Okay, so Mike, so here's my thing. I would put 3 6 above UGK,
Mm-hmm.
and so here's my
And you're
thing.
taking UGK out of the 10?
Do you think UGK are better than the Roots and the Clips?
I think if we're talking catalog impact and chemistry, yes, I'm putting UGK over those two acts. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the impact is just, I mean,
The impact is heavy, but I think the Roots have them on catalog.
well, you know what?
And I think the Clips may have them on catalog too, if you're just talking straight up and down, best versus best. Because I told you, Michael, like as much
I
as I
love
love
the
Riding
clips.
Dirty, as much as I love Riding Dirty, I'm not taking Riding Dirty over Hell Hath No Fury. Like pound for pound, I'm not, and that's saying a lot about what I really think about Hell Hath No Fury. And no sort, I'm not trying to disparage Riding Dirty at all. I'm speaking about how highly I think about Hell Hath No Fury.
Right, right. I mean,
I think the Roots have a better argument in here because, like, if you were to go to the Clips, my chemistry issue with them is that they're brothers, and to the average listener, especially if hearing them for the first time, sound kind of similar. Well, same family, so same kind of vocal tone. You know, Pusha did a great job of switching up his flow. You know what I'm saying?
okay. Well, let's analyze the roots for a second. Let's do
Yeah.
that. Let's do that. First of all, does anyone in the room think that the roots are not top 10? Or, no, let me just put it this way. Are the roots better than Outkast, Wu Tang, Tribe, Public Enemy, De La Soul, NWA, Mobb Deep, Run DMC, UGK, or 3 6 Mafia? If we're talking catalog, impact, and chemistry. Um, I
See, I
think
don't think the impact. It's so hard to state the impact
because
because
they're
there
they're
aren't
still like the only band in hip hop, right?
right. So they take knocks on that. But Mike, I think their catalog is better than UGK and Three Sixes. I just don't think the impact is there. And then how do you rate the chemistry
Where are
of a
their
live
hits at?
band?
Where are their hits at?
Where their hits at?
Yeah.
I
Like
mean, Mike,
what?
I could say the same thing about UGK and 8
No,
Ball
no.
and MJG.
I was just gonna say rap. I'm not asking like they don't have
No, I
any. I'm
think it's
just
a
saying
valid
let's rattle them
conversation
off.
because none of these groups that we're naming are really revered for their
Well,
hits or
UGK is
hit making
revered for
ability.
Big Pimpin', and they're revered for International Players Anthem. They're revered for, and I know these are collaborations, but they're still in this group's catalog. Sipping on some scissors, so they have things that they're notable for. Like
So
what
Mike, but when
songs
you're
would
saying sipping on
people?
some scissor, hold on, sipping on some scissor's on Three Six's album. Big Pimpin'
It
is
is.
on Jay's
It
album.
is. It is.
So that's what I'm saying.
Big
No, the
Pimpin' is a
Roots
big
got
one though.
the hold on, but the Roots got verifiable hits that is just like in house for the most part. I mean, their biggest record is "You Got Me,"
You
of
got me.
course.
All right.
They got "What They Do."
What they
That
do
was
is big.
What They Do is pretty big. "Break You Off" was a pretty big single from them with music. Those would probably be their biggest three records single wise. I would think off the top of my head, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I wasn't a big fan of Break You Off, but it's a cool record.
I like I like Thought doing stuff different on the mic than just being a lyrical tactician. So I'm all for him playing like the ladies' man
Hmm.
role, just because it's good to hear the tactician, like kind of like let his guard down and freak his style like in a different manner. I'm not the super biggest fan of Break You Off. Mike D'Angelo was supposed to sing the hook to Break You Off, not music.
I could hear that.
Yeah.
Everybody in the room is agreeing that the Roots need to be in that top 10. Who's going out? Do y'all think that the Roots should be in the top 10 over UGK? Or do you think that the Roots should be in the top 10 over 3 6 or Mob Deep or who? I'm with you though. I think that the UGK and Roots comparison is tough, but when it comes to notable records, I may give UGK the edge, but I do have to give the Roots the longevity. I know that's not really a part of the criteria,
Well,
but
no, it is when you bring the catalog into effect, Mike. That's what I'm saying. It's like as much as I love UGK, it's like, well, the Roots got "Do You Want More," "Illadelph Half Life," "Things Fall Apart," "Phrenology," "The Tipping Point." These are all dope records.
they
All of
are.
them.
They are. Um, you got me as their home run.
You Got Me's the home run.
Let's say, what's
But
their
Mike, but
impact
that's what I'm
like?
saying. Like a Roots fan, when you're talking to somebody that's a fan of the Roots, they don't even bring up "You Got Me." Like
Of
I was talking
course,
to
of
my man
course.
Andrew that I went to high school with, and he was like, "Thanks for bigging up in the Roots," and like he like brought up the fact that I bought up 100% Dundee off "Things Fall Apart." Mike, like they're known for those types of records. It's like no, that's like Thought on some rap shit.
Triborough asked the question, how many classics the Roots got compared to UGK? Sam
I can
says that the Roots have the best live show, period, over UGK, over 3 6 Mafia, and over Mob D.
Yes,
Okay.
yes to all those things. I consider, if we're just talking live hip hop performances, I consider Thought to be top five on stage. I would put him right after personally KRS-One, Kane, DMX in his prime, and then I would go to Thought on stage. So I'm with you on all of that as far as classic albums. And here's okay. So here's my thing in my case for the Roots.
Okay.
I feel like they have two classic albums, and the other groups we're talking about in this vein only have one. What say you? Because I say Illadelph Half Life and Things Fall Apart are classic rap albums, whereas UGK has one certified classic, 8 Ball and MJG, one certified classic. And I'm going to say the same thing about 3 6, because you would lean on World Domination, I would assume.
With 3 6, I would lean on World Domination. I think 3 6 is so different in the sense where they have so much material, so much underground mixtape material as a collective.
Right.
Um, and
But do
they
you think it's Mike? So do you think World Domination is better than Things Fall Apart? Because even if you do, then there's Illadelph Half Life. So what is 3 6 and UGK? Because I think I'm becoming in the minority. Most people think Things Fall Apart is the Roots' best album. I don't agree. I still think Illadelph Half Life is slightly better, but most people feel like it's Things Fall Apart. So even if you were to say that Riding Dirty and World Domination are better than Things Fall Apart, what do those groups have for Philadelphia Half-Life? And that's my case for the Roots.
Charboro says I agree with Coop on the Roots albums. I think 3 6 Mafia got multiple classics. Some people think 66, 61 is. It's hard maybe because
I don't, but I think it's a dope ass record.
see they're one of those groups where it's like again you were able to see the evolution and
No, Mike, we in the South got to see the evolution.
yeah. I was able to see, and I think that for people who were into that group, Mystic Styles a classic. When
Mike,
you
my
know,
cuz M6, he swears by Mystic Styles.
yeah,
That's his shit. Mystic Styles is his shit. Yeah.
it hits you different because you kind of seen everything, and to see the group turn into what it became, then it makes all the vintage stuff classic. Like how people say "I'm Serious" is classic. It's
Or
not.
Mike, I was actually thinking about Compton's Most Wanted.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? But T.I.'s I'm Serious is not a classic album, but because you saw what T.I. was able to become, it feels classic in that way. So I think 3 6 has some of those things, but if you want to
So,
sit there and say certified classic album, I'm
right.
leaning towards a world domination, but to be perfectly honest, I've heard people say Mystic Styles a classic. I've heard people say The End's a classic. I've heard World Domination and I've heard 66, 61. Now, none of the stuff after that, like, Most Known, Unknown, none of that. But to me, they probably have one. But I am a
Right.
tough judge.
Right. So no, we're talking about top 10 groups, so we have to judge it on its highest scale. And that's why I'm like, well, if it's all relative in terms of it being a debatable conversation, Mike, don't we usually go to the catalog as the tiebreaker?
I think that the Roots have one as well, though. So that's just me.
So okay, so what's your take on Philadelphia Half-Life? Because Mike, I've always noticed every time I talk about Philadelphia, you really don't have much to say.
I
And I
think
want
it's
to
just
say
a
this too. How about
dope.
this, Mike?
You know what I think about it? I think about it like I think of ATLians. I think it's a dope
Oh,
album
okay.
that,
I think that's a fair
didn't really
comparison. Same
take
year.
us anywhere. You know what
Hey,
I mean?
Mike, can I submit something to you? Philadelphia Half-Life actually got rated in the source higher than ATLians. Philadelphia
Yeah.
Half-Life got 4.5 mics, and I thought it was actually a deserved 4.5 mics. I thought they rated that album properly.
I
And
like
so
it. I like it. I like it like I like Hell on Earth. But again, I think that the groups have done things that
another
were
4.5 mic
better.
album.
Yeah. I think it's good. I think it scratched the surface, and I guess that on a style points level, I wouldn't give it too much.
It's on some rap shit, Mike. I think that is
Yeah.
why I love it. Like Philadelphia Half-Life is some like that. How about this for somebody that didn't know the Philly rap scene?
Right.
After you listen to Philadelphia, you feel like you're kind of plugged in and in tune. You know what I'm saying? And I love albums like that that give you they bring you into their world on Philadelphia Half-Life. That's my thing with it. Like Things Fall Apart doesn't feel like their world to me. Philadelphia is like the dudes from the live band from Philly that's still like out here getting it.
With all that being said, I'm okay with putting the Roots ahead of UGK because the UGK does have a lack of, I guess, notable singles per se. Even though I think Murder's a classic, I love Let Me See
And
It.
album work, Mike. I'm
You
leaning
know,
more on the album work than even the singles. I'm
yeah,
talking about the album work the Roots have done.
yeah. But
And the Roots
a
been around
large
for a
part
while,
of
Mike.
that is
Mike,
because
the Roots have been
UGK's
around as long as UGK too. Like they came out
yeah.
with Organics before Do You Want More. That was like really their first project. So they've been around like 90, 91, 92.
I think UGK supersedes them in impact.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I would say chemistry too, but I
Yeah.
know that for the Roots it's different because you're a band, but they go in and out of members like crazy.
That's kind of a testament to the group too. The fact
It
that they
is.
really haven't, you know what I
They
mean?
keep the core, but for the most part,
I
it's
mean
been a revolving door.
the core is Questlove and Tariq, you know what I
Right.
mean? So
So I would give UGK the chemistry part of it, but in catalog, I'm with
see,
you.
that's what
I'll
I
give
mean.
that
How
to
are we
the
rating this?
Roots.
Because when we're saying it out loud, it's like, okay, UGK has the impact and the chemistry, but the Roots have the catalog. But you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with again just the long catalog that the Roots have,
And
and I
then,
just
Mike,
think
it goes to how are we rating the craft of MCing in this? Because one thing that all these groups have that we're talking about are legendary frontmen lyricists on some sort of proportion and level. And I mean, Mike, it's Black Thought. You want me to
It
start?
is Black Thought, but we talking
Want
about
me to get
Pimp C.
started? You
And
want me to get started?
Pimp C's polarizing though. You know what I'm
Yeah, Pimp
saying?
C's like, hey,
Yeah,
Mike, I love Pimp C, Mike.
Pimp C's
But
polarizing.
we talking about like Mike. This is what I mean about Jadakiss and their verses. Like Mike, that's thought on the mic though too.
I feel you. Bun B
That's
had
like
a
Mike. The
run
thought that
too.
we revere, those stripes got earned on those Roots albums, Mike.
But you remember when Bun B had that run of features, and when Pimp C was locked up, Bun B was
No, I
everywhere,
remember
killing
that,
it.
and that was a nice run. But we're not including solo material.
That's
That's why I'm
true.
talking about Black
That's
Thought
true.
made his run. Like Black Thought is considered to be the epitome of what an MC and a lyricist is. Mike, where
You're
did he
right.
earn that?
You're
He
right.
earned that on these albums that I'm talking about. And so to
You're
leave the
right.
Roots out of the top 10 is kind of discrediting what he's contributed to the culture and the
You're
craft of
right.
MCing for as high up as we have him and as far high up as everybody else got him.
You're right. You're right. You know what? The roots in there over UGK, because again, I agree with you. Like, we can't count the solo, Bun B, Pimp
Can't
C.
call it the Bun B run. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm fine with that. Now, as far as 3 6 Mafia, I think that their impact.
No, I'm
I
cool
mean,
with
listen. I
3-6.
feel like they're like hip hop's Parliament Funkadelic, man. Like, you listen to artists that have been out over the past 5 6 years, shit, even the past 10 years. They're recycling work that this group did 20, 30 years ago. It's
So, Mike,
phenomenal.
we brought up that comparison with Mobb Deep before. It's like, no, you can hear Mobb Deep and 3-6's influence in their region
Yeah.
today.
I mean, I heard
Today.
straight up 2 3 6 songs on Drake's album.
Yep.
Every album that comes out, especially on a mainstream level, I'm hearing old 3 6 music.
Mike,
Whenever
it's
21 and Metro
Mike,
come out.
Mike, we're gonna call a spade, Mike. It's rare that we get an album out of an Atlanta rapper where we don't hear a 3-6 influence on some sort of record. Correct me if I'm
It's
wrong.
wild,
Tell me
man.
I'm wrong.
It's
Tell me
wild.
I'm wrong.
No, it's wild.
We can go listen to almost any project from any artist out here who got some sort of cred or is making moves, and we can go play their shit, and we gonna hear DJ Paul and 3-6's influence somewhere on it. It's striking.
Shit, Duke Deuce. Even we were listening to Isaiah Rashad. 3 6 is on there too.
Everywhere.
It's
everywhere.
wild,
The
man.
influence is everywhere, Mike.
And maybe 10 years ago, a group like 3 6 wouldn't have been on this list. But at this point, it's undeniable, man.
Because it's impact.
I don't think that there's anybody in hip hop in their era whose music's had legs like theirs. I give Mobb Deep that too. When it comes to the Griselda movement and all that, I know they get compared to other people as well, but their mood that's murder music. That's the infamous. That's that shit.
Mike, they tell Mike, from a king to a god. What's the name of the record, Mike? Juvenile Hell.
Yeah. Even on the West Side Gun record.
Which one?
The new West Side Gun.
Oh, Hell on Earth 2.
Hell on Earth 2. Yeah.
Yeah,
Juvenile
it's right
Hell
there. Like
Hell on
they
Earth
telling you, like they literally telling you on the song titles what pocket they in. They in Mobb Deep's pocket, like in a good way, like in the way that us like have been waiting to hear somebody from the East Coast do something like that again to the level that Mobb Deep did it at. Because here's the thing that I'll tell you, and I realized this when I had the Locks down as one of my groups. It's like I realized how great Mobb Deep really was. Because as much as I love the Locks. And as MCs, Mobb Deep's not fucking with the Locks in their totality, but the Locks ain't fucking with that catalog and that impact.
No, not at all.
They didn't make records like that, Mike. For as great as they are as lyricists and MCs, they didn't make records like Shook Ones and Give Up the Goods and Survival.
Not on their albums. Maybe on mixtapes when they were rhyming over other stuff. Yeah.
Mike, no, they not on the other stuff either, Mike.
Traboro says he's asking about the Beastie Boys.
Mike, Jadakiss got something fucking with Shook Ones or Styles do on their catalog?
No.
Give Up the Goods, Mike?
What do you think about Beastie Boys?
Quiet Storm? Mike, does Kiss have a solo record better than Quiet Storm?
No, man. Look, Locks ain't compared to Mobb Deep. What do you think about the Beastie Boys?
Ooh. you know, License to Ill is one of the most important records ever.
Hmm.
Um, it's hard to qualify them in this
It is hard to
conversation.
qualify them because of their growth as a group. I think they start
How
moving
about say that
towards.
they really weren't even a hip hop group really totally after the second album? Would you say when you say they ventured off into?
You know what? Honestly, Paul's Boutique is my favorite Beastie Boys album. Now, License to Ill had the hits, but conceptually, they took hip hop somewhere else with Paul's Boutique, and
A lot of people feel that way.
that shit was crazy. Like Car Thief, where they sampled that Jackson 5 version of I Betcha. That shit is crazy.
No, they got work.
Now I think
Yeah.
what they would probably suffer from though is them being individual lyricists. I've heard LL Cool J even say this when he was talking to Eminem, and he was praising Eminem for I guess giving the white boy lyricist a voice, and he kind of said, shout out to Beastie Boys, but they weren't really known as lyricists like that.
They weren't.
So I think that would be the knock there. And the other thing is that I feel like they moved on and developed into a group that wasn't as much of a hip hop group anymore. We never really seen that. Um, I guess Outkast was going on that path but stopped. Speaking of which, Rodriguez asked, "Is 3 6 more influential than Outkast?" I would say so. I
Yes.
mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
because we talk about impact, and it's like that's like asking if Lil Kim's more impactful than Lauryn Hill. She is.
Outcast made a blueprint that couldn't be followed though too, because
Yeah.
they changed their blueprint all the time.
I think Outkast's blueprint is a mentality. You know what I'm saying? Like, honestly, I don't give a fuck what anybody says. Kendrick talks all that Tupac stuff and had him on the Pimp a Butterfly, but to Pimp a Butterfly is Outkast influence. Kendrick's whole style. No, with Kendrick's song, what's that song?
The depth of the content is Tupac inspired musically, more Outkast and Public Enemy inspired.
The way he puts music together is very Outkast inspired. You can't tell me that the art of peer pressure is not Andre 3000. You can't even tell
No, I hear
me
what you're
that.
saying. That's a musical
Yeah.
influence. That's what I mean. He's influenced by a lot of people, so I can hear content wise, you know, why he loved Pac so much and was going to Pac for inspiration conceptually and content wise for that record. Because I mean, if we're talking about content and conceptually, I mean, Pac is unrivaled really outside of like Nas and Scarface, in my opinion.
Would you say
You know?
Sing About Me is more Pac influenced or something like that?
Possibly, he's more what I would say into the nuances of the artistic craft of MCing than Pac is. So he's going to take longer to flesh it out. Pac is going to come up with the idea, feel it, spit it out, get it. You know what I'm saying? Boom, boom, boom. So he's more of an artist in that sense. But yeah, I can hear it.
What specific Kendrick songs would you say were Pac influenced like that?
I mean, Mike, I think just the overall, that's what I mean. I think he pulled from Pac for the overall message from To Pimp a Butterfly.
Okay.
I think the overall message is something that we could have possibly heard from Tupac in his progression at a later age. Because if I'm not mistaken, Pac passed when he was 25. Kendrick was around 30 when he made To Pimp a Butterfly.
Amazing.
And so I can see Pac crafting an album content wise like To Pimp a Butterfly when he's 30. That's what I hear.
I got you.
That's where I feel inspirationally he's inspired by it. This is the type of record with the themes and the motifs that I'm talking about that Pac would have done as a fully grown man.
And Pac was fucking with Goody Mob too. I mean, Gipp said something along the lines that they were supposed to do records together.
Get post pictures on the gram and all that with them with Pac and all that. They got pictures with Big and all that. Everybody was fucking with Goody.
So to think that the fact that Organized Noise might have ended up rocking with Pac or doing some production for Pac is not too far out there. Not to mention that Organized Noise, their distribution deal was signed through Interscope when they put Cool Breeze and Witch Doctor out. And that deal happened in like 97, 98. So, and with Pac dealing with Goody Mob and them dealing with Interscope, Pac could have actually got some Organized Noise production, and you know what comes with that at that time, musically it would have came together kind of in those ways that you're talking about. So, yeah, that could have definitely happened. So, What other groups are we leaving out? Because right now, what I got, we took UGKR and we got the
Hmm.
Roots in. So the top 10 right now is looking like, in no particular order: Outkast, Wu Tang, Tribe Called Quest, Public Enemy, De La Soul, NWA, Mobb Deep, Run DMC, The Roots, and 3 6 Mafia.
Yeah.
Okay.
So who's off is the Locks, Bone, the Clips, Goody Mob, Ghetto Boys, 8 Ball and MJG, and UGK.
Yes.
Shout out to Salt and Pepper, Cypress Hill, Beastie Boys, and everybody that made comments.
And the Fugees too. I know that was in the comments, but the Fugees. We just had the score. Unfortunately, we don't count solo stuff, so the Carnival and Miseducation can't be counted. And Blended on Reality was, just not it.
It's a
Somebody's
mid.
asking about the Hot Boys.
Are they really a group? Because it's like when you want to talk about the Hot Boys, I mean, aren't they really solo MCs that got made into a group?
Feels like it. Yeah, feels
Kind of
like
like G Unit, Dipset. Like I didn't really count any of those because those are really solo MCs that came together under the collective. You know what I'm saying?
it. No,
Like
no,
like
definitely
Wu
not.
Tang was a group and then ventured off and did solo work.
Right. I mean, we had already had BG albums, Juvenile albums, and all
Right.
that before the Hot Boys even came
Right.
together.
BG and Wayne did an album together before that happened, if I'm not
Did they?
mistaken.
I don't know that.
Yeah. Wayne's first album is a project with BG called BG's. It's like BG
Oh,
apostrophe Z. It's both of them.
I've never heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Fugees had one great album. Unfortunately, they can't make the list. I think one of the biggest surprises for people probably is going to be the fact that Bone didn't make the list. Because people who, I mean, listen, I'm a Bone fan myself. Like I was hardcore Bone, but if we're objective and we look at the totality of things and not just look at everything in this peak, it's going to be hard to put them, above any of these. And I think that 3 6 over the years has just climbed.
No, they have, Mike.
Yeah.
Like more than any group, particularly in the southern region. I don't think there's been anybody in the southern region whose legacy has grown in the last 15 years the way 3 6s has.
It's insane, honestly. I mean, it's one of those things like it's a miraculous story, and I don't even think. Do you think Juicy J's rise to prominence had something to do with it? It had to.
It was a confluence of a lot of circumstances, but it was mostly them staying down
Mm-hmm.
and sticking to what they knew.
Yeah.
And their time came around, and they shined when their time came around. They stayed true to what they did. They waited for their moment. They hit it big when their moment happened, and their status is now legendary. It's a beautiful story. Actually, it's one of the more interesting. Mike, you and I were talking behind the scenes, like their story. Just overall, if you were to go like start from the beginning and take it to now, it's one of the more interesting and fascinating stories in the history of rap.
I think so too. One of those things that really paid off for them is the fact that they put out a lot of music that I don't think they had any intention on being heard. Like a lot of that stuff they put out, like those In the Summer mixtapes, they were one of the first, at least the first that I heard in hip hop, that were doing full out original music for
Mm-hmm.
mixtapes. And
Mm-hmm.
that became a thing in the 2010s because everybody's mixtapes was over other tracks, but they were doing this when they were just doing it for the city. And lo and behold, years and years have gone by, and people have reached back and reused a lot of that stuff. And they, like you said, they stuck to their guns. Even when they got their major deal, they would go back and redo some of their old stuff on the major stuff. And I used to think it was funny, but I get it now. I don't even know if they knew it was gonna happen in this way. But for them doing that, I think that opened the lane for this generation to go back and reuse some of the other stuff because
Yeah.
they've seen it rework
No.
because they see how it worked.
No, Mike. Absolutely. They seen the
Yeah.
game plan. Yeah. They seen the whole game plan.
They were
We seen
independent
it
as hell,
work.
man. Them as individuals in the group, though, I mean, to have 6 members, I think Gangsta Boo is extremely underrated when we talk about female MCs. The fact that she did 4 albums with these guys and never sounded like I mean, she was a standout. You know what I'm saying? Like, is there a female in hip hop that was in a group with guys for 4 albums? I think Digga did one album with Flip Mode, But other than that, I can't think of. And then she had a really dope solo album with Inquiring Minds too. I think that her album just kind of came before it needed to. I think if her album would have dropped in 2000 when Sipping on Scissor and all that, I think it would have did a little bit better. But she had a hit with Where Them Dollars at too. Gangsta Boo was super underrated.
Hey, Mike, it's hard to contend with the male ego too. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
She had to tour with these guys.
yeah, she had to
Yeah.
deal with these guys
Had
for
to
a long
see the
time. It's
shit
hard
that
to
they
deal
were
with the male
dealing
ego,
with.
especially like the male rap ego.
Mm-hmm.
Some dudes from the streets get money and she stayed down with them for 4 projects. Oh, she done seen and heard and dealt with some shit that ain't no woman in this business dealt with.
And she's spitting too, man. So shout out to Gangsta Boo. I think Gangsta Boo is extremely underrated and understated, and was a part of one of the best collectives. I mean, shoot, that the South's ever seen or the hip hop's ever seen. Do you want to try to put these in some sort of order? Because of all these groups, who would you put in that number one spot? Is it Wu Tang or is it Cass?
If we're just going off Wu Tang's projects, we got to put Outkast and Tribe ahead of Wu Tang, actually.
I think so too. Yeah.
Like, as far as catalog, Outkast and Tribe and De La Soul stand out.
So Outkast is the greatest hip hop group of all time.
If we're just talking about their catalog, Mike, where they actually suffer is impact because their impact is not as great as Wu Tang's, Tribe, Mobb Deep's.
I don't know. I think that even this allure that people have of Andre 3000 has to count as Outkast impact because he has
That's
nothing
fair.
else outside of Outkast.
No, Mike, that's fair when you talk about Andre's allure. That's Outkast driven from his Outkast material because there's not like there's other material to riddle that off of. So yeah, Outkast, I would objectively I would probably go Outkast, Tribe, Wu Tang, Public Enemy, De La Soul, and after that you can go NWA or Run DMC because I think those were the two most impactful groups ever.
Yeah.
And so you can go to either one of them in whichever order you want after that. And then I'm gonna go to Mobb Deep, and then I'm gonna go to 3-6, and then I'm gonna go to the Roots.
I like that. Yeah, I was thinking somewhere along those lines too.
Yeah. That's what I mean. The
I
first
think
five
PE
for me
songs
were,
is
the
super.
first five for me were simple, Mike. Like Wu Tang, Outkast, Tribe, De La, Public Enemy. Like that was pretty easy.
De La, I think, group for group, if we be perfectly honest, album for album, excuse me, I think they might have the best collective catalog album for album. Now,
You want to know what it
biggest
is, Mike?
songs, PE maybe.
Mike, De La has about 3 or 4 projects that are at least great. Classic, depending on who you ask about who, Mike, because like there are some people that feel like Stakes is High as a classic too, and so they have 3 or 4 albums in classic arguments of status, so they're heavy in the game.
A lot of people think that, and Balloon Mind State's one of those weird albums where
It was weird.
Where
It's
it's
great,
like-
but it's weird.
people like myself who are nerds think it's a classic. You go back and look at the review
so-
that the Source did, they gave it 4.5.
So this is
And
what's great
people
about
act like
De
they
La,
fell
though.
off.
No, Mike, this is what's great about De La. I love Stakes is High more than I love Balloon Mind State. But if you were to tell me that you prefer Balloon Mind State, I'm not going to argue with you.
Balloon Mind State is brilliant. They had the JBs in there, James Brown's band. You got Maceo and all these guys.
No,
the
no,
other
I dig
Maceo, not De La's Maceo, James Brown's Maceo, in there building and
No.
creating with Prince Paul.
I dig it. I just prefer Stakes is High. And I think 3 Feet High and Rising is still their best album, too,
But see, I think the De La Soul's their best album.
I'm about
Gray
to say,
says-
a lot of people, when I say 3 Feet High and Rising, they tell me De La Soul is Dead is their best album, Coop. I'm like, but that's why they're so high up is because they got 4 albums that people are arguing about within their own, like ain't nobody arguing about Wu-Tang or Outkast best albums. Enter the Wu-Tang and a Clemini.
No, for real. Gray says Balloon Mind State is incredible, just ahead of
See?
its time. The thing is, man, I could be wrong on this too, and anybody in the chat let me know. I think they created the skit and the remix. Was there anybody doing remixes before De La like that? Like the Buddy
Mike.
remix where you're adding people on? Like they had the album version of Buddy, and then you got the Buddy remix.
Mike, I know that you're right on one accord about the skits for certain. We're gonna have to check the remix thing, but might be the first of that, but definitely the first with the skits. That's what I mean. They heavy in the game. They lies heavier than people realize.
Their level of originality is out of here, man.
It's second to none. No, their originality is second to none. So them and Wu Tang are the most innovative groups ever to me.
I think honestly, man, and I know Tribe always gets a lot of not Tribe. Cass always gets a lot of Tribe comparisons. Excuse me. I mean, rightfully so. You could tell the influence there, and Andre clearly lets it know that he's been influenced by Q-Tip heavy. But I think Cass's originality and just their album themes that comes from De La.
Think
I
that's more
think
De La?
that's the De La influence in Cass. I think they're
I
more
think
De
it's the
La
whole crew,
influence
Mike.
than
I think
people.
it's the whole Native Tongues clique that
Oh,
inspired them.
definitely.
I think, like, when you hear Southern Playalistic, it's like, no, like, I can hear that they're in the High Road, they're in the De
Oh yeah.
La, they're in the Tribe.
Well, see, Southern
They're listening to
Playalistic. I
leaders of
think
Mike. They're
Southern
listening to
Playalistic is
leaders of the
different.
new school. They listen to LONS.
No, I think Southern Playalistics is different. I think that they, under the direction of Organized Noise, these young MCs who were still trying to find themselves were able to make a really dope album under the direction of some older, more experienced musicians. But I
Yeah.
think when they start finding their own way, like ATLians, and we really start getting these out of space themes and these type of things, I think that comes from De La. Even when you listen to some of their skits, even their skits on Stankonia, how they're funny and this and that, like that's so Prince Paul.
Yeah. No, I'll give you that. De La's heavy in the game. That's why I said it wasn't hard picking them as a top five group. It's like, no, they belong right up there with Wu Tang and Cast and Tribe, Public Enemy, NWA, Run DMC. De La's right there.